What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with Astrodfs, and in today's video, I'm going over Week 2's cash plays on DraftKings. So, yet again, to me, this is a pretty balanced ownership week. I think the only player that truly has a good amount of ownership, like projected ownership, is Christian McCaffrey. Other than that, I think ownership is pretty balanced out. So let's get into it with quarterbacks. So the quarterbacks, I know a lot of them are close in price with Lamar, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow even. A lot of these guys are close in price, but when you compare to what we saw last season as far as pricing for quarterbacks, they're cheap. Like, these guys are very cheap. So starting it off, I think Lamar is kind of where some people want to take that shot in a home division game where we just saw, Lamar and Josh Allen go to battle. Both quarterbacks looked really good. Josh Allen obviously got more fantasy points, but with how good of a game Derrick Henry had, it's very possible Lamar also could have had a really good game as well. So I think a lot of people want that exposure with Lamar, which I have no problem with either. So at 7,000, yeah, Lamar is kind of that first cash option in that top price of quarterbacks. Joe Burrow at 6,600. This is somebody I'm looking at. It's got the highest total on the slate. We've seen Cincinnati struggle to start seasons. It's just how they are. This could be a thing if you want to avoid it and say, hey, I'm going to wait until they finally catch fire to start consistently targeting the Cincinnati offense. That's fair. We just heard Cohen say that Travis Hunter is going to play more corner. That might help their DBs out. We'll see what that looks like. But overall, I think it's a really good matchup for Cincinnati. Jacksonville on the other side of that, if Jacksonville can, find some chemistry, I guess, with Brian Thomas Jr. and Trevor Lawrence, because there were some missed opportunities in that. They obviously got Travis Hunter started quick, but the Cincinnati Jacksonville game, I definitely think, is one that's going to have a good amount of ownership one way or another. So it's one of those games you desperately need to consider if you're fading that game, where you're going to get different at, because it's going to have a good amount of ownership. So Lamar 1, Joe Burrow 2, just off pricing, right? And then we're going to go down. Granted, I'll get into the tournament plays. I don't really want to go over tournament. I know some people get turned off when I talk about cash and tournament, so I'm just going to talk about cash. The tournament video will be tomorrow. So the other side of that game is Trevor Lawrence at 5,600, right? He is on that borderline between cash and tournament, so I will talk about him in cash. But at 5,600, I know a lot of people were disappointed if you played Trevor Lawrence. I didn't have a lot of exposure in Trevor Lawrence. I had him in some tournaments, but it wasn't a high roster percentage, so it didn't really hurt me that he had a bad game. But I think this week against Cincinnati's defense, yes, he is worth targeting. We saw Joe Flacco and Cleveland's passing game have quite a bit of success. There were some other times it didn't look good, but overall, someone like Cedric Tillman had a really good game. Fannin Jr. had a really good game. So it's not one of those situations to where even though Cleveland lost, they scored under 20 points. They still had a lot of guys fantasy relevant last week. So Trevor Lawrence. Drake May against Miami. Yes, Drake May again is a cash play at 5,200 going against Miami. If you watched any of my videos going over that, I really like Daniel Jones week 1. I had him, he did really good for me in tournaments. I did not play him in cash. I loved it. It's just I wanted my roster somewhere else. It would have helped, but I still wouldn't have cashed if I would have had Daniel Jones. But Drake May at 5,200 now goes against Miami, where he scored 16 points, or 16 DraftKings points against Vegas last week. There were a lot of times Drake May did not look good, but against this Miami secondary, this is going to be a defense you want to target against. It's very clear. I've said it, they're one of the secondaries I think are a bottom 5 secondary in the league. They're going to have games though where that defensive line and the linebacker group are going to help the defense. And there's going to be games where the secondary is not completely terrible. And this could be one of them. But for how cheap Drake May is, it's fine to take a shot on him in cash. And then last but not least, we're just going to click it because not going to scroll down to find it. But Mac Jones at 4K on the road against New Orleans, where, yes, Brandon Ayuk's not there. Juwan Jennings not there. George Kittle, we obviously know is not there. So what do you still have on the San Fran side? You still have Christian McCaffrey. You still have Ricky Pearsall. They signed Kendrick Bourne. MVS, I believe, is still will have a role on that wide receiver group. Russell Gage, I think. So when I say these names, this is not like, oh my God, names, but we saw Mac Jones, what he did in Jacksonville last season with Brian Thomas Jr., kind of, helped him out. So Brenton Strange had a few good games in there as well. Evan Ingram. So Mac Jones at 4,000. This is the min. If you want to pay up this week and you want to get different, Mac Jones at 4K. And you're going to be like, I'm not saying you have to, but a lot of people are going to play Christian McCaffrey. If you want to put Mac Jones and Christian McCaffrey together, that's fine. That's really, really good. I'm okay with that. So if you want to go the Stone Min, which has had success in DraftKings, right? A lot of people have Mac Jones projected around 15 points. When you're doing your builds and stuff like that, like obviously you want the highest projected that fit your salary, but you want at least a 3x type of return. For Mac Jones to get 12 points is not crazy. We saw it happen quite a bit last season in Jacksonville. So those are my 5 quarterbacks. Like I said, Trevor Lawrence is on that line. I did have to bring him up. But if you want to disclude him, put him in tournaments, that's fine. And you can only go with 4. So Lamar, Joe Burrow, Drake May, Mac Jones. Those are my guys. Moving on to running back. Running back's in a really healthy spot this week as well. If you don't want to go Lamar and you want to, get a Baltimore top player, Derrick Henry at 8,200 against Cleveland. So that's one to target as well. I personally, if I'm going to go a Baltimore player, I'd go for Lamar for cheaper and then pair another high up running back, because it's pretty hard to, unless you're going the Mac Jones route, but it's pretty hard to do it if you're paying up at quarterback this week. So yeah, Derrick Henry is a cash play. Just for the safetiness of it, right? You're paying a very hefty price. You're paying for the most expensive player on the slate, but you're paying for a guy that has a very high floor and a very high ceiling. But Christian McCaffrey at $700 cheaper is kind of the one to target with, all the missing pieces in San Fran, facing a defense that, when they played Arizona last week, if you combine James Conner and Trey Benson, they both had a really good game. Like, that running back room had a really good game. Christian McCaffrey saw a lot of volume last week, saw a lot of the snap share as well. So Christian McCaffrey is worth targeting in this one. Achane against New England, right? And it's just for the receiving aspect of it, right? The rushing is not going to be good for Miami a lot this season. Their offensive line is banged up this week against New England. But for the receiving upside for Achane is worth mentioning as well in cash. And the same thing for Chase Brown, right? I'm going to mention a lot of names for cash and running backs, and I apologize in advance for doing this. But there are so many good plays at running back this week that the cash pool, like Christian McCaffrey by far stands out, and then it's going to be, in my opinion, pretty balanced out for the rest of the running back room, but we'll see if something changes. But Chase Brown at 6,800, like if you don't want to depend on Joe Burrow and his pass catchers and you want to go the Chase Brown route, it's not a bad play at all. You could go the double running back route for Jacksonville Cincy and go Etienne and Brown and be perfectly good in that game. James Conner did go up in price, but he's facing one of the worst defenses against a running back. Yes, Trey Benson had a really good game for the volume that he got, but James Conner is pretty much going to be a consistent piece of their offense until he's hurt. So at 6,600, he's definitely worth targeting in cash. I will mention mine of Kyren Williams, 6,300 against Tennessee. If you yet again combine the Denver running backs, they had a really good game against Tennessee. Now, if you throw a guy that gets a majority of snaps in Kyren Williams at 6,300, he is in a very good spot against a Tennessee team. So I'm targeting Kyren Williams. I think the Rams against Tennessee, I think a lot of the teams this season against Tennessee are going to be a good play in cash. So getting exposure to either, Kyren or Puka or Devontae, whatever route you want to go, Kyren is, 6,300 for running back, so I think he's in a really good spot as well. But yeah, going down, ETN is 5,700 against Cincy. Obviously, Tank Bigsby was traded away. Liam Cohen saw the emergence of a really good running back room last season that supported multiple running backs at that. So I don't want to say it's just ETNs and he's locked. Allen, I think, was the shock of getting snaps last week. So it's not saying ETN is going to be the bell cow. If you're like me and you believed in ETN in this offense to where he is going to have success this season in this offense, then yes, he's a really good play against a team that has been a bottom team against running backs. So for me personally, this is where I have my cash ending is ETN at 5,700. There's some other good plays, but they're tournament plays, and we're not going to talk about tournament in this video. So it ends at ETN. So just recapping it, Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, Devon Achane, Chase Brown, James Conner, Kyron Williams, and ETN. So those are the running backs I'm targeting. Yes, there's a lot of names, but like I said, besides Christian McCaffrey, it's going to be pretty balanced as far as some of the other names we see at running back. So I think people are going to be different at running back, and that's okay. Now, a wide receiver, Jamar Chase, 8,100. Yes, he remains the same, but the upside is there for Jamar Chase. He was obviously non-quarterback, the number one player in fantasy last season. When he has his ceiling games, I mean, they're ceiling games. I don't think the slow offense is something that's concerning me personally. Against a bad, I'm still going to say, like, Jacksonville played Carolina really good, but that is Carolina. Carolina is going to be a very hot and cold offense in this league. Bryce Young is going to have his games, but they just caught one of those games against Carolina. I still don't think they're a really good defense. They could prove me wrong, obviously, and have a really good game against Cincinnati, and that would go far. But the difference between Cincinnati's offense and Carolina is obviously a huge difference. So, yes, I'm going to want a Cincy wide receiver in cash. So if you want to pay up for Jamar Chase at 8,100, that's fine. If you want to go down to 6,100, T. Higgins, that's also fine. I think T. Higgins has a little bit of a tougher matchup, though, than Jamar Chase, but I still think overall both of them are really good cash plays. Puka Nacua at 7,600 against Tennessee. Yes, this is one I want to target as well, Puka Nacua. I for one, just, I don't know what it is. Puka Nacua has been so consistently targeted in this offense. He is a fantasy, just great play, time in and time out, and I just can't wrap my head around playing him all the time. So he's in a really good spot at 7,600. If you want to consider him your top cash play, that is fine at wide receiver. And yet again, the wide receiver pool for ownership is kind of all over the place. I will say Brian Thomas Jr. at 6,700. Yet again, the other side of that game, I think he's a really good run back piece. If you're targeting Cincinnati's offense, if you're stacking him with Trevor Lawrence, yet again, I still think it's a really good piece in that game with the highest total on the slate. Moving on, JSN at 6K is got to be considered for cash. Cooper Kupp really didn't get included last week. Torrey Horton wasn't included. The tight ends weren't included. It was pretty much the JSN show. And we saw, Pittsburgh's entire defense just, I don't want to say struggle and say anything like that, but I'm going to say Justin Fields had a great game against, a top elite defense. Granted, I don't think Sam Darnold has the same skill set that Justin Fields does as far as getting out of sacks, which Justin Fields did quite a bit. But JSN is going to be highly targeted. He's got a good matchup in the slot against Pittsburgh, so I don't think he's going to see a lot of Jalen Ramsey, or at least I would think he doesn't see a lot of Jalen Ramsey. It doesn't mean that Pittsburgh can't switch stuff up, but that would kind of be my lean there. And then we're going to go very cheaper. Ricky Pearsall, I don't care that Mac Jones is his quarterback or not. There is a really, really, really good shot that he is the wide receiver for San Fran. We'll watch Juwan's status, but Ricky Pearsall at 5,300. against a very bad secondary, and kind of being that lone safe piece, I'd like to say, for San Fran's offense, with, Ayuk, Juwan, Kittle kind of all being out. Ricky Pearsall is that guy that's been there, first round pick last season. So I'm really high on Ricky Pearsall this season. I loved what I saw towards the end of the season last year, when injuries and stuff like that happened. So at 5,300, Ricky Pearsall, I think, is in a really good spot for cash. Hollywood Brown at 5,200. This one does worry me a little bit because Xavier Worthy, I don't think is going to play. If he plays, I'm impressed, but I don't think Xavier Worthy is going to play. So getting Hollywood Brown at 5,200 with 16 targets last week, it sounds amazing against a Philly team that their defense did not look good against Dak last week. I am concerned that now Philly, knows, obviously no Rice, but Worthy might not be there. Who are they going to go to? Hollywood Brown is going to be targeted, obviously. I think he's a good cash play against Philly, but I do have my concerns there. Other than that, there's not a lot of cash plays cheap. I have to mention Stephon Diggs at 5K against Miami. Granted, didn't do a lot against Vegas, but against Miami's secondary, the second week with this offense now, I do like him for cash, so I will mention Stephon Diggs in cash. Even if he's not ownership-wise, he is a player in my pool that I have for wide receivers. So, moving on to tight ends. Trey McBride. If you can pay up for tight end, Trey McBride's in a really great spot. Me personally, I think paying down at tight end is kind of the play this week. Obviously, if you want to pay up at multiple running backs, if you want to pay up for a wide receiver, you're going to have to pay down at tight end. So if you can afford it, he's a great cash play against Carolina, who's been historically bad against tight ends. So McBride in a really good spot at 6K, but we'll go down. Hunter Henry at 4K against Miami. I think this is safe to say. We saw Tyler Warren have a really good game against Miami last week. Hunter Henry's kind of been a consistent piece for Drake May so far. He's not a guy that's going to get you 20 or 30 points, but at 4K to say he doesn't get you 15 or 16 points, I think it's very fair to say on a slate like this. And then continue to go down. Juwan Johnson's got to be worth mentioning. I'm not as high in him as others are, especially in cash. Anytime you play Fred Warner, I'm very concerned about it, but with all the tight end injuries, he remains, the number one tight end currently. Brenton Strange at the same price, 3,600 against Cincinnati, to where we saw, Fannin Jr. have a really good week against them last week. Strange had a good game. They also used Hunter Long as well. He got some volume as well. But Brenton Strange had a solid week. Granted, 9.9. It doesn't, take down a slate, but I think it is a consistent piece, especially if he remains under 4K. He's going to be a really good piece. So targeting Brenton Strange, you don't need to go for Brian Thomas Jr. You don't need to get Travis Hunter. If you want to get a cheap tight end in that game as a run back piece, Brenton Strange, I think, is a very fair play. And then continue to go down. Chigo Okonkwo, I will mention, I have to mention because I really like how I project him in cash this week. So at 3,300, I'm throwing Chigo Okonkwo at home against the Rams. And then I will say Tongas is kind of the guy I'm targeting. I know Farrell is more expensive. Farrell is probably going to outsnap him, but Farrell is being used more for the blocking. So Tongas at 3,200 is definitely one I'm looking at in cash. And then I think it's fair to say Fannin Jr. is worth targeting against Baltimore, who Dalton Kincaid just had a really good game as well. Got targeted a lot, saw a lot of snaps. It wasn't just that he saw, when he got in the game, he saw volume. He saw a lot of snaps for Cleveland. They did quite a bit of two tight end. There was times where he was in and Njoku was out. So Fannin Jr. at 3,100. So that's kind of it for tight ends. Like I said, tight ends is very balanced. I think tight ends is very, very balanced this week. If people are going to pay up for McBride, we might see some ownership. But like I said, with Lamar seeming like a really good play, you could still go Josh Allen, but that's in tournaments. But Lamar, Joe Burrow paying up at running back, paying up for a Puka or a Jamar Chase. It's going to be pretty hard to afford Trey McBride, but I do have to mention that he is a really, really good play. It's just hard to afford him in your lineup. So I think we're going to see ownership split cheaper with, Hunter Henry, Juwan Johnson, Brenton Strange, Tongas, and Fannin Jr. I think those guys are going to split ownership pretty well. Defense is weird. I kind of like paying up at defense this week. So the Broncos against Indy, Steelers against Seattle, I think is another good one. Patriots against Miami at 2,800. And then Giants against Dallas. Yet again, their defensive line. Like I said, the Giants got three DraftKings points, but at 2,300, that's all I needed, right? I didn't need them to go crazy. And as far as like a paydown defense, I don't like Cleveland against Baltimore. That's just kind of tough. Carolina against Arizona, still tough. Tennessee against the Rams, I think is worth mentioning. But it's pretty much between like the Bears, the Saints at the same price, 2,500. If you want to say, hey, I don't believe Mac Jones is going to have a good game, they're going to be able to contain Christian McCaffrey. All of that is fine. That's a fair point. So if you want to go against where ownership's going to be in Christian McCaffrey, possibly Mac Jones, and go the Saints defense, that is fair. So yet again, defense is random. I don't put a lot of emphasis into picking defenses because anything can happen, right? Like the Jaguars against Carolina had a really good game. The Colts against Miami had a really good game. We see some of these defenses up here. So like Detroit got 0. They're facing Green Bay. Still didn't do a lot. Pittsburgh's defense was highly targeted last week, 2 points. So the Giants outscored that. So yet again, defense is random. Don't put too much into it. I will. This is what I'm going to start doing for you guys. I will make a lineup I kind of like, and we'll go from there. So Joe Burrow, 6,600. Obviously want to get CMC in there. I do like Kyron. Wide receiver, I do want to put Jamar Chase in there. I will throw Brian Thomas Jr. because I want that run back. I'm going to go to defenses, and we will go with... we'll go with the Saints. I'm fine with the Saints. The tight end, let's throw Fannin in there. Just for the sake of it. We get 4,600 average. Oh, sorry. Who down there? So, like I mentioned, I like Stephon Diggs. So if we throw Diggs, we get 4,200 left at flex. Diami Brown, Hopkins, Ingram, no. We're just gonna get this 4K strange running back tier. You could double tight end it. I don't love doing double tight end, but like Hunter Henry you could throw in there as well. Who down here makes sense? It's easy to throw another tight end in here. I'm not going to. I'm going to try to get a receiver. You know what? For the sake of the video, let me throw in Juju. You throw Juju into that lineup. So that's just an example. This is Friday. There's not a lot of huge injury news for fantasy relevant players. Some offensive line injuries to definitely watch out for. That does affect people. So that's just an example lineup. Hope you guys did enjoy the video. Like I said, I will have the tournament video going out tomorrow. So if you guys are just looking for that one, that will be posted tomorrow. Thank you guys for the support that we've received so far this DFS season. I really do appreciate it. I love to see the growth and see people enjoy the content. If this content isn't for you, if you don't like it, if you want to fade me, then you know what? When I talk about these players, target whoever else I'm not talking about, right? Go the other way, and if I do bad, you do good. So hope you guys did enjoy it. I'll see you in the next one.